A big part of my mission personally is to help encourage people who are maybe reticent to start using these tools. So I want to introduce you to 6 magic words that have been really formative for me in my life, and then also give you 3 reasons why, if they're true for me, they're true for you. To do that, I need to introduce you to my parents, Louis and Levon Acey. They live in Austin, Minnesota, as do I. Dad turns 80 next month, and he's on Facebook. Actually, women over 55 are the fastest growing demographic in Facebook, so the whole thing about the population being so young globally is really interesting and everything, but it doesn't particularly matter because when you have 500 million people on Facebook, it's the really good place to be. Willie Sutton said he robbed banks because that's where the money is. You know, if you want to reach people, Facebook is the place to reach them. But that's a little bit of a side point. The real reason I wanted to introduce you to these magic words is that as we were driving down the highways and byways of southern Minnesota 40 years ago or so, my mom and dad had this thing where as we were driving by somebody with running a road grader or a jackhammer or some other kind of complex piece of machinery, they'd kind of look at each other with a knowing smile, and maybe even count down mentally in their head, knowing that within just a few seconds from the back seat where I was sitting, a voice would pipe up much higher in pitch than it is now. But it would pop up and say, well, I'll bet I can do that. And I don't really remember myself saying that, but I do really remember my mom and dad, or particularly my dad, saying, well, probably you can. Okay? That he was really encouraging to try things. And so that's what I hope to, and what I hope you'll get through this whole experience today is some of that I'll bet I can do that spirit. Because I think it'd be really unfortunate if you'd see the things that people here on the panel are doing or that we're doing at Mayo Clinic and say, well, yeah, that's great for them, but I couldn't do that. Here are 3 reasons why if I can do this stuff, you can do this stuff. The first, this is my 4th grade report card. My mom found it and thought it would be encouraging to give to me for Christmas last year, I guess. And anyways, it says, Lee's work has been average this period in all areas. So this was obviously before the Garrison Keillor time when everybody was above average. But as it says at the bottom, Lee has difficulty keeping track of his papers. Occasionally he's late handing in assigned work. When we clean his desk, it's amazing what we find. So some things never change. But so even though I was giving my parents ample reason to disbelieve me when I said, I'll bet I can do that, still they were encouraging about it. I did marry way above my station 26 years ago this month, and this is my wife, Lisa. She'll come into the story here in a little bit. But so here's the second reason. I begin my presentations with my highest degree of educational attainment for a couple reasons. First, because BS and political science just kind of go together. But then also, in a room like this, in most situations, I will be among the least formally educated people in the room. I mean, most people have at least a bachelor's degree. And so what I really want to emphasize is that this doesn't require a lot of formal training. Doesn't require higher education to be able to do this stuff. It requires some Midwestern common sense and some creativity, thinking about how you can use these tools. The second part of this slide highlights my experience at Mayo Clinic as I started in media relations at Mayo, telling the story about Mayo research and patient stories, and really emphasizes the continuity between what I was hired to do and what I'm doing now, that these tools aren't just fancy new shiny gadgets to try. They are more powerful ways to do the work that you're already doing. So if you're doing advertising, if you're doing marketing, these are better ways to do that. Okay, a third reason. The young lady on the right is my granddaughter, so I'm a grandpa. So mediocre elementary school, BS in political science, and grandpa, okay? But also, Evelyn Grace Borg owes her life to Facebook, okay? She wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for Facebook, because the young man who's now her father was at University of Wisconsin-La Crosse about 5 years ago. Put in a search term theology on Facebook, searching at UW-La Crosse. My daughter Rachel, who was going there at the time, had the same last name as I did, or as I do. Yeah, anyway, her last name, AASE, put her right up at the top of the list of people who matched that search term. I'm thinking it's more her picture than being the #1 search result that caused him to poke her. But he did poke her on Facebook, and she messaged back, and yeah, three weeks of conversation on Facebook. They met at Caribou Coffee in December of 2005. 4 hours later, Rachel picked up the phone, called my wife Lisa. They talked for about a half an hour, and when Lisa hung up the phone, she turned to me and said, I think they're going to get married after the first date. It's because Facebook helped them make that connection on things, they had the real fundamental things in common like theology, and then it was just a matter of whether there's chemistry or not, and I guess there was. But the other thing that Evelyn has helped to show me is the power of some of these other technologies, whether it's Facebook or one that's eerily suspicious or similar to the Jetsons. You remember Mr. Spacely showing up on the video screen, and they would be able to talk back and forth from the office. And I remember if you would ask me 5 years ago, what would it cost to have video phones like that? I would have said like $5 a minute or something like that. Well, this is a conversation. Well, it wasn't much of a conversation because this is with Evelyn and my now 8-month-old grandson. But this is a conversation that I had from Sweden with them last week. They now live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, so they're about 550 miles away from us. When I was raising my kids, my oldest kids, we were living in the Twin Cities. My parents saw them probably every 6 weeks or so, because that's just kind of how it works. I see Evelyn and Judah just about every day, and my wife certainly does, and it's because of Skype. Anybody know how much that costs? It's $0. It's free. It's really amazing. I started my transition from the mainstream media relations to social media in 2006. I had been given the responsibility for social media at Mayo Clinic. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do this blogging thing, maybe I should just get one of my own. I should start out and make my mistakes on my own account instead of on behalf of Mayo Clinic. They're kind of uptight about that thing. So anyway, I was one of 50 million blogs at the time. I created a blog called Lines from Lee. Didn't know what it was going to be about, but I just knew I needed to get that experience so that I would know the ways of blogging, become a blogging Jedi or whatever. But in late 2007, I was in Chicago for it's called the Association Forum of Chicagoland. It's sort of like the National Association of Associations. It's all these organizations that have their headquarters in Chicago. They asked me to do a Facebook 101 course, 20 minutes on Facebook. And I got some in-depth questions, and I kind of joked, well, that's in the 201 class. And they got me to thinking, wow, I could sort of reposition my whole blog, rebrand it, and turn it from the kitchen sink PR New Media and GTD to Social Media University Global, or SMUG. And so as you see, I named myself the Chancellor. When you create a university, you can give yourself a great title. Our Latin phrase in the seal is, it's not that hard. Okay, so that's the whole point of this. That instead of having sort of a mishmash, well, by the way, this is Old Main. This is our main campus building in Austin. But we do have an oak-shrouded campus with ivy-covered walls. And then these are the core courses in the curriculum, so you can do the Social Media 101, Intro to Social Media, Intro to RSS, Intro to Wikis, kind of step-by-step work through it. The blogging curriculum, the Facebook curriculum, the podcasting curriculum, the Twitter curriculum. And here's where you go to enroll. The good news is there's no tuition, so no FAFSA form is required. You are responsible for your own room and board, however. But what's kind of neat is we've got a group, we call the student body the Smuggles, kind of like in the Harry Potter books, the Muggles were the ordinary people with no magical abilities. That's what Smuggles are too. We got more than 1,000 people in that Facebook group from 6 continents. And it's just really astonishing that for nothing you can reach the world like that. Part of what I've done with this, I want to provide just a little bit of historical context because, as was said earlier, we have